And also, I'm going to try and go live. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. I don't know if it's going to work.
Please work. That's why I was bringing up this. It's always hard to change platforms.
Yeah. Yeah, but Zoom is the easiest. That's what we're using for the conference. Okay.
Says it's streaming on Facebook right now.
Oh, it does.
I got a little thing came up on my screen.
All right, so maybe we're live. Let's see. I'm just checking. Yeah. Hi. Hey there. I think we're live.
All right.
I'm so excited. I think it's working. I'm actually gonna, if everyone's there, maybe they can make a comment if they can hear us, and also if the sound quality is okay. I've been having issues with tech. I don't know what it is. I just can't seem to get it straight, but lots of echoes with all my equipment and stuff. So hopefully it sounds okay and you can see us. I think there's a bit of a
You
delay.
sound good to me, but I'm on Zoom.
Yeah, right. Me too. Actually, I'm going to check it on my phone. Okay, well, you know what? Let's just go. So, like, how are you? Nice to see you. It's been a while.
It is going on. It seems to me like, especially the fall busy season happened, and it's worse in the pandemic. There's just too much. There's a lot going on in different ways, a lot of different directions going on, but that's good. That's good. I just miss people. I actually miss the ease of being in people's presence, because when you're with other bodies,
Yeah.
the dynamic flows a little easier. But
So for teaching, you mean, or just?
yeah,
Like,
I think that for teaching, I mean, I've been surprised that I think that teaching virtually is more effective than I thought, but I think it's more fatiguing for me as a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of drain, and you're not able to like see and feel who you're with as well. So there's a natural creativity that comes when people are together that is lacking online. So it's one of those things where I know we're all in it together. This is all part of what we're doing. But to acknowledge it, it's a weird kind of fatiguing. I remember one time I heard Gita Iyengar say that talking a lot fatigues your legs. And since she pointed out that line to me, like, it's really true. She said, especially if you're talking on the phone a lot, but now Zoom, like, because you're constantly coming up this way, it's really draining to your legs, even for a paraplegic, right?
Wow.
Like, I get an ache in my legs, which I'm not supposed to be able to feel.
Wow.
Part of why I'm an adaptive, a teacher that teaches everybody, because there's sensations in the whole body. Yeah. And yoga, what's great about yoga is that it teaches everybody. That's part of why we work together, you and I.
Yeah. That's so interesting about the legs, because I noticed that when I'm on the phone, I need to walk around. Like, I do much better when I'm using my legs. Sitting on the phone is hard for me. And so now with Zoom, it's like I can't move, I have
to. Yeah, and what she had suggested, she was teaching, and what she had suggested was to support your legs with blankets. So take the stress out of the hips was what she, basically, but that's hard to do when you're at Zoom, you're not sitting in simple cross legs, it's like, but like walking around is a solution, except if it's not a solution, if I wheel around, you miss me. And I go back and forth. So.
Yeah. Well, not for me anymore. I have to sit here in front of this camera.
Totally. This is a time, if you can afford it, to invest in a good chair.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, bad chairs are just, they matter. All right, so let's talk about the conference.
Okay. Well, yeah, just so thank you, first of all, for being here. And I mean, for being a keynote speaker for the conference. I really appreciate it, all your support, and for everything you do, all your teaching. I'm so excited that you'll be a keynote speaker this year. And I think it's great that hopefully we get to expose you and all of our presenters to a larger community of people who are going to find us online. So I'm excited about that, the potential.
Yeah, one of the things that I think, and I remember when you first started, like maybe I you and I started talking when you were like a year or two into it, and what you built since that time and the dedication that I've watched, it's an honor, right, to actually be part of what you're doing, but also to support because you're so generous with what you're doing. And that's what I think is so great about this conference and your vision for it, is that you invite all different practitioners in, all different views, and it comes out, it exactly reflects what I think your vision was, because I watched the vision from the beginning or near the beginning, and it is
Yeah,
exactly
you were
what,
there in the beginning.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I don't know
exactly
if you
what
know
we're
my
working
story
for.
actually about you. I think I've told you this, but that I had the idea for a conference, and I was talking. Then I met with Anna, um,
Yeah.
Anna, who worked with you,
Mhm.
and I said, well, it would be amazing if Matthew Sanford would be there, but I can't get a hold of him. Like I couldn't get a hold of you. And she said, oh, well, you know, she'd worked with you forever. And
Yeah.
so I'll call him. And so she called you and you were like, sure, I'll come. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. So
Yeah.
once you agreed to come, I thought, well, this is actually a thing. So you're
Yeah,
right.
whatever. But it's like, it's one of these things where your vision for what this is and how inclusive it is actually, it's the right one for a time where we need to, not just during the pandemic, but it's hard work trying to change, because we're also trying to work at some of the structure of our society and how we deliver knowledge to each other and insight and to everybody. And so it's worth putting your shoulder to the wheel. So I think everyone should attend just to check it out and see what it is. And I guarantee that you will find some nugget, regardless of what you're interested. There's enough diversity in the presenters
Yeah.
and interaction abilities that you'll find stuff that'll change you. So
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible group, actually.
yeah.
We have over 50 presenters. We have keynotes from 6 people, including you. So you, Diane Bondi, Susanna Barkataki, Amber Carnes, Nikki Myers, and Michelle Cassandra Johnson. Is that 6? Yeah, I think that's.
Seems like 6. I'm counting you. Let's count that as 6.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm like the host, so I'm going to be like introducing everyone. I'll be there just saying hello, introducing you.
It's funny with Nikki Myers. Years back, she had a studio where she and I went to teach in Indianapolis a couple times. There, back then, she told me I needed an upgrade on the sweaters I wear when I teach. I'll never forget that. It was awesome. She's one of my favorite people in the world. Nikki is so freaking funny and full of insight and wisdom. I can't wait. If you don't know Nikki, all the keynotes are great. Nikki's got it going on, right? In a big way. So, I mean, they all do. Diane too is another one. That's, oh my goodness.
I love when like Nikki talks about yoga philosophy, actually, because I think that's what she does really well. You know, and it kind of like, it's not what people expect, I don't think, from her, and like the way she integrates it with her work on addiction. It's just really amazing.
Some of the most insightful things I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple of times when I was teaching it there where we'd go out to lunch or go out to dinner after that we're done teaching for the day, and it was like the things she said were like exactly what you're saying. So deep, so simple, so delivered, like with humor, but depth, right? Like it was amazing to me. Some of the most, I've been more impacted by some of the conversation with her than in the last 15 years and with most conversations. So
wow,
all of them, you know,
that's
such a
awesome.
clarity. Like Diane, I only know Diane pretty well. Diane's got a clarity to her teaching and her presence, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, Diane's incredible. She was also there at that first conference. Do you remember? That was
totally. Yeah, it's amazing.
We're our keynote speaker. So nothing's changed much. I was saying, you know, the conference, we're still doing the same thing. It was a lot of the same people, but we're expanding. Like we have a lot of other presenters too. But I feel like one of the themes of this conference is back to basics, like going just back to like, what are we really about? Like, I mean, not just like what is accessible yoga and what does it mean? You know, what does it mean to create access?
The other thing is, I think that conversation necessarily should be ongoing. If we think there's like, you know, like, so the fact that the similar themes keep being revisited, right? It's just not true. I mean, this is a working movement. It's like a working document that needs to keep being added to and expanded, and it's, so I think
Exactly.
it makes sense to have kind of a theme, like go back to some of the, the basics, like you're saying, and try to redefine it again, because everything keeps changing, expanding. Our awareness keeps deepening,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the beginning, I mean, my work was mostly working with people with physical disabilities, and that's where I came from. And you too. But then I think over the years, accessible yoga has really expanded, because the question of access is really, like, my understanding has expanded
that's what I mean.
around race too. And like, that's really what's on my mind these days. I mean, we have an incredibly diverse group. I mean, not just, well, of all kinds, racially diverse and culturally diverse, talking about racism in yoga, talking about cultural appropriation and that connection with India, actually, and a lot of South Asian presenters, which I'm excited about, talking about that work, talking about that connection. Actually, even, I don't know if you know, a teacher, she just posted yesterday about this, Anjali Rao, who is going to talk about the caste system in the yoga tradition and how that connects to the questions around accessibility, which I think is a really great topic, because I feel like there's very little conversation around that, like the culture that yoga came from,
Right.
And
Damn.
accessibility. Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, for me, I didn't start off teaching like I wanted to teach a particular population. I started as a yoga practitioner. I just wanted to be a yoga student, right? Like, I just kind of showed up kind of innocently, like, well, I'll just go to this yoga workshop and see how it goes. And I got lucky and met a very open teacher, Joe Zukovic. But I came to it and then eventually started teaching after years of practice, because I just want to help people be yoga students, because yoga is one of those things, the insights at core are, and I particularly focus on asana and pranayama, but even within asana, there are principles and a universality to the yogic realization that can be taught through with asana and expressed through the body, regardless of the level of ability that's in front of you. And that's where my work more centers, is more about what are the things, how does animation move through the body from core outward and back? And what about that can't you teach to somebody? Like, and what are the ways to think about how yoga and asana travels through a body? And more importantly, I think for yoga teachers, is when you start to study that in relationship to people that, quote, have neurological deficit, let's say, you end up getting much greater insight into the flow of prana. I want to say to everyone out there, at some time in your yoga career, you should be working with people with disabilities and neurological deficit, because you will learn more about prana and how it moves than you would otherwise, right? And so I think everybody should have to take a dip through the stream of quote people with neurological deficit.
But you make me laugh every time, because you always say, "Oh, I teach asana and pranayama," but when you teach it in a way that actually is yoga, because I think there are teachers out there who just teach asana. I get that. Like, I think there are that. I don't think you are that, actually. I mean, you're teaching yoga because you're getting like so deep in that. Like, you can use the asana. Maybe that's it.
That's what I do more, is that I try to use that. Yep.
But you're going all the way to the yoga. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's not. What I learned from you is always yoga. It's not like physical movement or exercise and stuff like that. And I think that is happening out there.
Well, that's the hope. I mean, one of the things that I took very seriously early on, and I've been doing yoga for 29 years, but the idea that every limb can teach every other limb in yoga, right? And because I lived with, I have a spinal cord injury from T4 down, because I lived with the lack of access to my own body and the ability to move. I wanted to explore in that direction, but try to learn all of the limbs in that expression, right? So it's not what I do. I'm glad you see it that way. Like, I don't try to really teach poses. I try to get to how do the principles of yoga happen through any body. right? Like, and it means a whole bunch of things. You have to learn some things about prana. You have to learn things about focus, inward awareness. All these things have to start to come to bear. And I think when you work with a special population, whatever you call, whatever words you use, I think it makes you learn yoga better. Yoga in general.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
And that's what I think is so important.
That's what I was saying. So you said, oh, everyone should get a chance to work with someone with a disability because they'll learn about prana. But actually, I think they're learning about yoga. Like it's,
Right.
but people with disabilities have taught me more about yoga than a lot of other yoga teachers have, just through their experience of their body or learning yoga, the challenges they might have, the insights they have. I mean, it's not like just about inspiration, but it's actually literally about life and like how they can engage a practice like yoga in learning about themselves and working on themselves. So I've learned so much from my students.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And one of the things that like I try to say, one of the things I like to say about, let's say again, thinking about as the lens or the particular focus on being asana, but like I think one of the ways to think about asana is to think about being able to yoke together what you can feel and control with what you can't feel and can't control. Right. So within the, there's a stuff, that we can control, that'd be the physical side of it. And that assumes a neurological connection. But all of us have a vastness within that you don't get to control in the same way. And one of the things that's been such an amazing teacher to me in my practice has been the fact that my paralysis will, no matter what I do, it will resist my will.
Right.
That's the beginning of my yoga practice. When will absolutely is shut down, what are the alternatives? And it turns out there's a lot more than just giving up. And I never get to win in a yoga pose by working harder physically. I have to work harder. I have to figure out workarounds and ways and accept that presence is not going to be the same. And what I have found is the presence that I experience within my paralysis, actually, I think in some ways is deeper and more yogic than what I can feel in my unparalyzed body.
Right.
That in fact, I feel like I feel the heart of yoga better within the places that I don't have the same amount of control.
I love that. I mean, I don't know if you can expand that. For me, it's like my mind too. Like that makes me think of my mind, which I can't control. So like that's yoga, right? That's the traditional definitions of yoga is like working with your mind. But I love the way you're describing is it like learning from the places you can't control and where there's resistance, because that's my practice too, but more like maybe on a mental, emotional level, like acknowledging the lack of control and the limit of my power over my mind.
And I think it's one of those things like trying to grab empty space, right? If you try to control your mind, you're pretty much done. It's not going to work, right? It's going to create a lot of fear and uncertainty, right?
Yes.
But I think that there's, this is an oversimplification, but I think that, and I think this is part of the key, for me at least, is to recognize that Patanjali wanted the oscillations of the mind to calm down or cease, I think, to reveal a different metaphysic, one that doesn't have as much separation in it. One of the things is, and I'm going to tie it right back to what's practical. I'm telling you, it's crazy. When I try to feel into my legs, whatever that means, right? It works better when I open my brain or whatever mind's perception of the space around my legs, not when I try to push through my legs. So like right now, if we're trying to open to the space right behind your sternum or right behind you, that affects my nervous system in a way that creates more sensation through my legs and through my paralyzed body. And I think that that's one of the greatest arguments for the fact that unity is practically part of asana, right? That like that we have a nervous system that can sense connection, just not the mind exactly, right? So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the difference between mind and consciousness, like how they might be different. Like instructions might be for the mind, right? Press here, press there, do this, do that. Your mind does that, but the one that observes and is aware of simultaneously of the movement of the subtlety, that's a different level of mind, right? Or simultaneity is part of the goal. So those are the types of things I'm going to be talking about.
Oh my God, I love that so much. You just made me think of so many things. Yeah, I'm right there with you around not trying to control the mind. Like I definitely try to find other ways in, and that's what I'm working on too. And like in my book right now, trying to look at the yoga teachings in a more accessible way that is just more user friendly, and to me it's something I can really connect with. And that's really the main one, I think, is stop the fight. Stop that fight, I love what you said, like grasping.
Yeah,
That's what I feel like I've been
trying to grab empty space, man.
I feel like my meditation is often like that, and I'm just kind of like, personally, I don't know if I even told you this, but like I think it was 3 years ago, my mother died, and I actually a few months later I had an anxiety attack, and it really threw me. Like I basically had to stop practicing for a while because I just felt so, just like triggered, and everything. Like going to meditation like triggered me and made me more anxious, and pranayama didn't work. So I really had to start over, and I learned a lot, about myself during that time, especially around this issue.
Yeah, what's interesting for me about what you're saying, and this is from having a series of different kinds of impediments and injuries and things, is that even when you had to stop for a while, once you already had committed to being a dedicated yoga practitioner, everything's part of your practice.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways that I accept when I'm going through a difficult time where I can't practice as much, or quote, be as successful as a yoga practitioner, whatever that means, is that no, this is now part of my practice. Like whatever comes in to my life current, it's like, this is still yoga. I'm just having to stop for a while. And it took me years to figure out that stopping sometimes is exactly what practicing yoga needs to be.
Yeah.
And taking stock again, and then starting new. There's nothing better than starting over.
Yeah.
Like on some, because everything's relearned, and you get to reclaim innocence and reclaim a beginner's mind and all those things. I think it's really important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to me. I got to start over, and it was painful, but it was positive in the end. And I think, honestly, I think you described already the biggest insight I've had from that process, which was to stop this inner battle, to really like try to have a relationship with my mind rather than fighting to control it. And, so rethinking the teachings for myself so that there's more, just more warmth and gentleness and kindness for me, like for myself and with my practice. And so I like how you described, like not going right in there, but also kind of going around. Like there's something gentle about that, actually.
Big time.
Like it's like holding. I mean, because you could think what you described about your leg was like, if you bring your awareness around it, that's actually holding it. Then you're actually holding your leg. It just feels so.
For me, it's like letting the universe go through my leg, as opposed to me like trying to, like one time I heard someone say, my yoga teacher say, you don't breathe prana, prana breathes you. And that switch of like perspective, it's like, wait, yeah, actually I'm a manifestation of that. And I think I'm actually taking it out. No, actually it's coming through you. But for me, like the centering and the quieter parts of yoga literally opens the door to another level of energy that's potentially integrated into your life.
Right.
That like centering's a door opener.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of like a thing you like, it's like, no, it opens the door to this other level of metaphysic that actually the mind craves. Right. The mind wants to be part of a stream. It doesn't want to be just a rock in the stream. Right. It really, and that's why love is so powerful. And those things that make you like be part of a stream,
Right. And I
right?
always say like yoga, I think we all have that experience of being in the stream. Like I know that I like to garden. Um, there's certain activities that bring that joy for me, that flow. But yoga is like designed for that experience. Like literally these practices are designed to create that within us. And yet we don't always let them. Instead, we approach in this like very egotistical way of like trying to control the process, to control the asana, control this thing, rather than actually be in more like a natural relationship with it, with yoga itself and with the practices, which means to me like allowing them to evolve and change in us. So like an asana won't look like something necessarily like someone else's, and I might not look like I looked the day before, but really more about this relationship, the relationship.
And trying to figure out, I've been spending years, and this is like, I think the key to how I end up trying, I'll talk about this a little bit in the keynote, but how I try to teach is that I think that yoga poses, every yoga teacher, every yoga student out there has to explore what it means to receive yoga poses rather than assert them. And I don't just mean, one of the things is how your mind thinks about it, but really to receive prana while you're part of the happening, right? And I think that one of the things that makes asana in particular universal is when you can show to people that even people that can't flex muscles and move their body, that they can still be part of the river of the manifestation of prana and feel it through their bodies. Then I've shared all I can share, right? And it takes different forms on different people and all these things, but when they can get that, it comes through you. And that's a great humbler for the mind. That's a great humbler for a whole bunch of things. But I think what I'll try to talk about in the keynote a little bit is what that means to receive. Even poses in which you're simultaneously like looking on one level, like you're directing them. Right? Like, but you're not really directing it. The best thing I can think is in certain positions, you plug into it more. So it actually travels through you. It's like putting a pipe in the middle of a river. You don't stop the river, but the pipe gets to have the river come through the pipe, right? And that's what you're trying to figure out in asana, I think. And how I think asana becomes accessible to everybody is when, as yoga teachers, we have to study, even though maybe some of the yoga teachers that teach people with like neurological deficit haven't had that experience, if they can study thinking and realizing how they receive poses. But that's, in order to receive that, all the other things are in play. It is just yoga. It's not just asana, right?
That's beautiful.
And we should probably be done. We're getting close to the end here. It's almost like burnt the time.
I was just going to say one thing that you just made me think of is how one of the things I realized when I stopped and then restarted is I became a student again. I went back I got a private teacher. We worked one-on-one for years now, very closely, and that really helped me. I think one of the challenges is for yoga teachers to allow themselves to be open. And I think it's hard because you always have to like have the knowledge, have this wisdom. People are coming to you. You have to know what to say. But I think as a teacher, it's like so important to go back to the unknowing, to like that open place of receiving. So it's hard to be receiving as a teacher, I think. And actually, that's kind of how we started. We talked about Zoom, like teaching on Zoom. It's hard to receive.
It's really hard to receive, and I think that the restarting and the re-feeling, you can drink a glass of water and then you can really drink a glass of water and you're still drinking water. So when you start over in yoga, right? It's the difference. It's like when you're coming back to it after having to take a break from it or whatever you have to do because of your life. It's like, wait, I now get to hear it again at a different level. I think one of the greatest gifts of being alive is you do get to start over again whenever you want to, whether that's in the wisdom of taking it one day at a time, starting over the next day. Remember, as a parent, I remember being told one of the pieces of parent advice that stuck with me is good, bad, or otherwise, it'll always be different in the morning.
Uh-huh.
It's like, it was such a great, sometimes at night problems look one way, and you get to go away for a while, surrender to whatever it is, come back and start again.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I think is
Beautiful.
what I like about what you're saying. And I think it's so cool and a testament to you, Jivana, that you started studying with someone and found it and worked on it and let yourself be open like that again. I mean, I wish that for everybody,
Yeah.
to especially people that have stopped. We're never not students here,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's an easy thing to say, but it's a hard thing to practice,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, I just got to receive from you, so thank you.
yeah.
Thanks for
I'm
doing
excited about the conference. I'm going to try to check some of the ones on the appropriation, cultural appropriation. I got to make sure I don't miss those. So I'll be
Yeah, they're awesome.
I mean, part of it, there's enough offerings. You really got to make sure it's like,
Well, one
wait,
good thing is that they're all recorded. So there's too much to actually take it all in. Actually, so there's, I don't know, 50 presenters, probably something like 40 actual sessions. So they'll be recorded in the platform we use. There's a portal you have access to. You go in there and you can watch them anytime for a whole year. So
yeah, that's awesome.
you can come back later.
I can come back later because there's a lot of stuff that's coming in that conference. So,
thank you.
all right, Jivana.
Thanks
for doing what you do.
Yeah, and we'll see you there. See you. So it's October 9th through 11th that weekend.
Yeah, next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks from now. Holy crimes. Hey, everyone, keep on keeping on, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Matthew.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.